Welcome to uBook channel. Read and listen to the greatest stories that mankind has ever told. From Iliad to COVID terror, and other famous classics. Enjoy the best world literatures throughout history.
COVID terror. Copyright 2021 by Gerry de Cadiz. All rights reserved. A unified Al-Qaeda and Islamic State took advantage of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic in reinvigorating its jihadist cause for dominance and the re-establishment of a caliphate. COVID-19 whistleblower, Dr. Li Wenliang, said, "It has been confirmed that they are coronavirus infections, but the exact virus strain is being subtyped."
COVID terror. Chapter 8.
Wuhan Central Hospital, Hubei, China. December 30, 2019. At about 5:43 in the afternoon, Dr. Li Wenliang wrote, in his Wuhan University Clinical Medicine 2004 WeChat group, about the existence of patients who were diagnosed of having viral respiratory diseases, initially identified as related to SARS. He also posted a picture of a diagnosis report, and a video of CT scan results. They are being isolated in the emergency department of our hospital's Hao'erhu Hospital District. He advised his classmates in medical school of the location where the patients are confined. These words of caution came about when the Chinese ophthalmologist was able to see a patient's report, which showed a positive result with a high confidence level for SARS coronavirus tests. The report had originated from Dr. Ai Fen, director of the emergency department at Wuhan Central Hospital. She was alarmed after receiving the laboratory results of a patient, whom she had examined, who exhibited symptoms akin to influenza, which is resistant to conventional treatment methods. It contained the phrase SARS coronavirus. Dr. I had circled the word SARS, and sent it to a doctor at another hospital in Wuhan. From there it spread throughout medical circles in the city. By 6:42 in the evening, a colleague posted back a message to Dr. Li, "Be careful, or else our chat group might be dismissed." The latest news is, it has been confirmed that they are coronavirus infections, but the exact virus is being subtyped. He replied, "Don't circulate the information outside of this group, tell your family and loved ones to take precautions." The warning came in too late. The news of a deadly SARS outbreak was then spread quickly among the Chinese social media platforms. After screenshots of his WeChat messages were shared on Chinese internet, and gained more attention, the Supervision Department of WCH summoned him for a talk, blaming him for leaking the information. Earlier in the day, the Wuhan Center for Disease Control and Prevention issued several emergency warnings to local health facilities about multiple mysterious pneumonia cases discovered in Wuhan in the past week. The CDC also sent out an internal memo to the officials of all Wuhan hospitals to be alerted, directing them to commence an investigation into the exact cause of the pneumonia cases of unknown etiology. It has been reported later that as early as the third week of November, officials of Wuhan CDC were already aware of the existence of a patient from Huanan Seafood Public Market, who was diagnosed a week later of severe respiratory illness. The agency cannot make an official pronouncement of the infection, because of the lack of scientific findings as to the primary cause of the disease. While the general community in China is little by little getting information of a fast-spreading disease in their midst, the scientists in Wuhan Institute of Virology have a different concern to attend to. The loss of the virus X to a terrorist calls for urgency and decisive action for its recovery. In a posh cafe back in WIV Laboratory campus, Gwen and Sage were having a coffee break. Chinese winter is severe, but the good ambience and dry air on the second floor balcony is at least tolerable. They were seated in a secluded corner, away from loitering customers. "It was not what I expected to happen," Sage declared as he was trying to enjoy a perfect coffee blend of an Italian cappuccino while Gwen settled for a hot cafe latte. The Chinese elite police force should not have been careless in dealing with seasoned terrorists. Sage could not believe that the primary targets of Oplan Purple Bubble of the Ministry of State Security were able to evade in the heat of battle. By now, Sixi and her associates are surely holed up in a secure and very discreet safe house somewhere in central China, probably commuting in transportations favored by commoners. They will not risk traveling by air, out of fear of being detected at the airport, he surmised. Gwen opined, "I learned from a dossier given to me by Interpol back in France, that she's a highly trained Al-Qaeda operative, who had close dealings with Osama bin Laden. If only I have known about it, I could be more careful in securing Virus X. There's no time for remorse. What's important is we're back in safe grounds," he smiled as a form of consolation out of her guilt, due to losing the viral agent. Former Army Ranger Delta Force operator Sean Gabrielle Fitzgerald cannot get over yet, with the way Operation Purple Bubble ended.
Sage positioned himself behind a metal cabinet in the hallway, directly opposite to a room with metal doors in the second floor. Although the entire building has low visibility because of smoke from several weapons, he can tell by gun flashes that this is where a lot of defenders are confined. Somebody very important must be inside the room. With precise hand signaling, Lieutenant Su directed 2 fire teams to rappel to the second floor, by hooking through the balusters, as the rest of the troops will assault through the staircase while providing direct and cover fire. Sage's first kill with the VKS is a shadowy figure, who was about to throw a grenade on the ascending troops. The man fell on the doorway, and released the unpinned grenade back to the room. A loud explosion, and shrieks of agony signified some additional casualties. Then the metal door closed back firmly. After an agonizing minute, SLCU operators were able to breach the defensive line in the upper floor. The remaining fire teams, 5 in all, were each assigned a target. The team leaders shouted, "Clear," after flushing the rooms from stout defenders. Only one room with a metal door tightly shut remains. Sage knew that the VKS is capable to penetrate, against combatants in heavy body armor or behind cover. So, he switched the rifle's infrared or thermal rifle scope. By heat signature, he can see a cluster of fully armed men near the door, while a lone figure is crouched farther. White Alpha, be advised of 6 bubbles 2 yards from entrance. The prime target is at 3 o'clock near the wall. The CIA agent radioed Lieutenant Su of what's inside the room, to help the assaulting troops avoid an ambush. "Roger to that, Agent Merks," the lieutenant replied. The building shook in a flash of fire and debris, as the metal door collapsed with a loud bang, after another amount of C4 was detonated. Without waiting for the dust to settle, government troopers methodically assaulted the room in a spray of fire from automatic rifles. Within 5 seconds, all frontline defenders were felled and put out of action. The last distinctive sound of battle is an ear-splitting explosion of a M67 fragmentation grenade thrown against the first echelon of assaulting teams, who penetrated the back of the room. The SLCU operators responded with concentrated fire against a smoke-shrouded target. When everything settled down, Lieutenant Su reported to Captain Chow. "Sir, the entire compound is secured. In the final target, we found a body still in complete uniform of a bemedaled PLA Lieutenant General. Any sign of the other priority targets?" "Negative, sir," the lieutenant responded. Sixi and her aides are nowhere to be found, among the bodies sprawled in the various locations of the Gu Imperial Palace. Upon hearing this, Sage became so worried. Definitely, the Al-Qaeda operatives were able to avoid being identified and captured. They found a way to escape during the heat of battle. They might have been disguised as civilians, who were escorted and evacuated outside the compound by the men of Lieutenant Su. Closely adjacent to the building is a modern cottage. A squad sergeant kicked the door and it opened to a deserted room. By the look of it, this could be the living quarter of Sixi. It displayed personal memorabilia, a family picture, some books, journals, and magazines, mostly in science. An electronic keyboard piano is somewhat out of place. The room evokes an image of a chaotic and hasty retreat of its occupant. So, this is the purple bubble, Captain Chow announced when he arrives on the scene. They were standing just outside the inner room of Sixi's cottage. He gave an approving nod to Dr. Zhou Meng, to proceed with their part in this mission. Fully clad in Level C hazmat suites, the WIV scientists and Gwen entered the room. They noticed a well-organized, and fully equipped biotechnology laboratory. This is just a level lower compared to our NBL. Dr. Zhou exclaimed. The National Biosafety Laboratory in Wuhan was completed at a cost of 300 million yuan, about $44 million, in collaboration with the French government's CIRI lab, and was the first Biosafety Level 4, BSL-4, laboratory to be built in mainland China. The scanning electron microscope is just newly installed and operated. Setting up this lab may have cost a fortune to Sixi's sponsor. Gwen commented ironically. Although she was informed by Ryoko on their way to Narita International Airport, about the personal background of General Gu Keihao. The scientists felt with foreboding, when they saw a Class II microbiological safety cabinet and some used flasks for Verocells culture. They searched the entire laboratory for any sign of the propagated virus, but nowhere could it be found. The virus X got lost in thin air, along with its robber. Dr. Zhou made the dreadful pronouncement. Gwen opined, I think the best that we can do, is dismantle this laboratory. Knowing that this facility can be considered government property, its equipment and methodologies could be transferred to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, that is currently administered by the Chinese Academy of Sciences. After ensuring that there are no hazardous biological agents that may infect workers, a specialized container van parked inside the compound. Dr. Del Pilar and the WIV scientists carefully disassembled the laboratory, part by part. They were wary of biogerm booby trap that may subject them to infection. After clearing the area, and making a well-documented inventory of all equipment, instruments, and reagents that Sixi had stockpiled, the van eased near the lab and loaded its cargoes. Captain Chow did a quick debriefing before Sage, Gwen, and WIV scientists and the assembled SLCU operators. Gentlemen and ladies, the mission is 60% successful. We dismantled the rogue laboratory, and eliminated its main benefactor. But we failed to apprehend Sixi and her aides, as well as secure the virus X. Let's just hope they'll drown in the Yangtze.
On New Year's Eve, Sage visited the Ministry of State Security to request for a permission to conduct field investigation of the impending health crises. With a previous call from CIA Director and an endorsement of WIV's Director Zhou, he and Gwen were allowed to gather some information that may lead to the recovery of virus X and prevent its misuse. Chinese authorities don't readily agree with what we saw in the medical community. Li Wenliang spoke in a low voice in his clinic at the Wuhan Central Hospital. As a member of the Communist Party of China, he knew the undesirable consequences if you transgressed the official dictum. Gwen was impressed of the simplicity of this overnight social media sensation. No one can deny any more of the reality that there is indeed an infectious disease of scientifically unconfirmed origin, being manifested by patients mostly here in Wuhan. Does it mean that there is a government cover-up, just like what happened when SARS struck in 2003? Not necessarily an official cover-up. I believe that even the top officials in Beijing are still perplexed of what is happening right now here in Wuhan. But being in the limelight of internet talk since yesterday, I started receiving some threats, ranging from losing my job to outright murder. Li showed Sage in his Oppo Reno smartphone the English translated text messages that are full of foul words. We came here not to antagonize the government, as to its response with the health crisis, Sage was apologetic. In his mind, the central government could not be faulted with the outbreak. It's clear from recent events that it's a terrorist work. But China, and the rest of the major powers in the United Nations, could not accept yet that fact, as it may result to social disorder. The Al-Qaeda ISIS angle should be out of the picture as much as possible. Panic that may lead to anarchy is more dangerous than real bullets. He applied what he'd learned before in Langley. You have seen a report of a patient infected with the SARS coronavirus. Doc Gwen here wanted to trace the source of the virus, and how the infection spread. Can we be advised as to the general location of that patient? Doc Lee appreciated their respect of the International Code of Medical Ethics, wherein a patient's name should not be divulged without proper permission. So, he simply said, "You may try the Huanan seafood market." Dr. Del Pilar is well aware of the probable timeline, when the virus X was first released, from the time it was stolen, to the day the first case was reported last November. What she wanted to know, is how it was transmitted across species, that is, from an animal to a human being. These people may be uncooperative to foreigners like us, Sage quipped, as he and Gwen alighted from a commuter bus in front of the market. Dressed in winter coats and boots, they could barely tolerate the freezing temperature. January is the coldest month in Hubei province. They usually get hospitable, if you're with a local. Sage was surprised to see Dr. Lee right behind them. It's perfect timing. We just arrived. Gwen looked amused with the appearance of Wen Liang. Earlier in the hotel when she was preparing for this trip, she got a text message that the ophthalmologist is interested to serve as their guide. Dr. Zhou was my clinical professor, in Wuhan University School of Medicine. When I learned that you're with him in WIV, I thought I could extend a little help. Besides, I'm so curious of the patient who came from this place. A wink from the Chinese physician, indicates that he has another purpose of coming here. Sage presumed that it has something to do with the strict censorship, even on conversations in public offices that are always being recorded. Being in civilian attire, no one paid any attention to them, as they blend in with the throng of people. They went deeper inside the market. The atmosphere is quite different from the video footages of the place they've seen in the previous days. Perhaps, some authorities have visited already, and a kind of protocols is most likely in place. Taking a cue from Sage, Lee asked a young man loitering around. Is there a nearby restaurant, where we can have some hot soup for this weather? That place around the corner, used to offer delicious soups and meals. But it's closed now. He looked at them with suspicion. In Hankow dialect, Lee insisted, that's unfortunate. Maybe a homemade soup will do just fine. Where can we buy some items like pangolin? It's advertised that its meat can keep your body warm. He pointed to his right, beyond the last stall is a shack with metal sheets fencing. It used to sell a lot of exotic items, and wild animals. But not anymore. Fash Engelshen. Sage tried his basic Mandarin, as to what happened. The young man looked at him in disgust. Lee immediately placed on his palm a crisp 100 yuan bill. He beamed. The owner and his family got sick last month, when they ate a pangolin left in their care by a customer. After which, a lot of people in the market got sick also of fever, and had difficulty in breathing. Many experienced severe coughing. A group of policemen came here last week, and ordered the closure of those stalls with exotic merchandise. Are there still other people here in the market getting sick? Gwen tried to enter the conversation. They are becoming numerous. In fact, our neighbor was brought to the hospital the other day, because of some pain in his eyes, but later on, I heard that he was chilling and with high fever. Dr. Lee was able to confirm his suspicion, as to where the SARS-like virus started from a patient's report that he saw. As a gesture of thanking him, Sage handed the informant another 100 yuan. The analytical mind of the CIA agent clicked upon learning that a customer left behind a purchased pangolin, which caused the illness of a lot of people. The young man gave them a tip. Where to find the vendor? There were 2 ladies and a muscular Chinese who came to my shack. A certain Mr. Fan, their driver, served as interpreter and was the one who made the deal with me. What happened then to their purchase? Dr. Lee interjected. After consulting with the woman, who looks like our Empress Dowager in history books, Mr. Fan told me to keep the pangolin and took care of it for the meantime. Gwen's local dialect is rusty when she asked the vendor, does the other woman looks European? Yes, a mean-looking type who never smiled all throughout. Anyway, they gave me a bag of moist crumbles, for the animal's food. I was surprised when the sexy-looking woman, obviously their boss, spoke in Mandarin and told me, that if their driver could not come after 3 days, I could kill the animal for food and keep the scales. She will come back to get it as a souvenir. Do you know where we can find this Mr. Fan? Sage is getting excited of this clue. It's the first time I saw him. But I was able to take note of the plate number of the car they used. That is my way of keeping track of big-moneyed customers. A satellite call to their contact in MSS enabled Sage to know, that the registration number is to a Cadillac XT6 under the name of General Gu Kehu. If Sixie is still in China, I can tell where to find her, Sage declared, as he sent a short message to his handler in Langley. Tucked up in the cozy spa of the Wanderain Wuhan, a 5-star hotel in Wuchang district, Gwen tried to assess her situation. She's a scientist and is supposed to be in a laboratory, amidst biogenetic equipment and other technologies. She should have been writing some treatises and research reports. But the last few days had shown her the excitement of field works, from the deadly battle at the Gu Imperial Palace, to a detective work in Huanan seafood market. This is the other side of life that she only saw in action movies. Back in her room, the Google Calendar chimed an alarm for an appointment. When she swiped the screensaver in her laptop, she saw that there is a scheduled dinner with the staff of Wuhan Institute of Virology. It's only a 2.1-kilometer ride from your place to WIV, via the picturesque Shuaguo Lake Residential District. An institute vehicle will fetch you in 15 minutes. Dr. Zhou's words were cryptic, when she asked what the agenda behind the dinner is. It's some kind of a reunion since 2 months ago. The WIV director could not hide his pleasure, as they partake a hearty meal at the Huame de Mayagui Garden Western Restaurant. As the Zongguo Zinian is still next month, this dinner is my Yuletide celebration for you. Zhu Dejia Zinian Quail. The team of scientists made a chorus. Almost everyone is around, the Chinese biochemist Ikuo, the South African bacteriologist Nils Krause, the German virologist Heinrich Schmidt and director Joe Meng. But the high spirit is sobered with the absence of Sixie, which reminded them of the problems they are now facing. Dr. Joe put on a serious tone when they started their desserts. The Wuhan Municipal Health Commission reported a cluster of cases of pneumonia in Hubei province, identifying a novel coronavirus as the causal agent. It was confirmed by the country office in China of the World Health Organization. Did WHO train its guns on us? Dr. Schmidt asked. He anticipated that by now, the government and other international agencies may have discerned that the spread of the virus was by no means an accident, but a deliberate act of terrorism, which started from WIV's mismanagement of its specimens. Fortunately, not yet. Instead, the WHO Director General requested us to take the lead in the conduct of investigations regarding the virus outbreak. Browsing through his Microsoft Surface Pro 6, Dr. Joe showed them an email. It was addressed directly to WIV, copy furnished to Dr. Guinevere del Pilar. The WIV director tries to provide some motivation to a demoralized research team. This is an acknowledgement by the WHO of the presence of a pneumonia of unknown cause, earlier detected in Wuhan. The UN Health Agency used the experimentation in Institut Pasteur, and consequently the treatise of Dr. Deadlier, in confirming the etiology of patient 0, the 2019 nCoV, which could be traced back to the virus X strain. He continued, the national government had made clear its interest. We are tasked to prepare a medical report on SARS-CoV-2. I was advised by the WHO president, that the Chinese Ministry of Health and WHO officials will be coming here anytime this month, to conduct an ocular inspection, and help us develop technical guidance on health crisis management. Gwen cannot keep her silence anymore. This is the beginning of a pandemic. Any crisis management strategy must be implemented the soonest time possible. The SARS-CoV-2 infection pattern indicates that the so-called health crisis could no longer be avoided. One principle that she learned from her study in microbial genetics in Cambridge is that, based on the evolving and very volatile situation caused by an unknown virus, it's still too early to really determine the positivity rate from the reported patients of the disease. We cannot talk about viral control if the disease does not spread yet. In this case, what we are seeing so far out of the sporadic patients of 2019 nCoV are the symptoms of introduction of the virus in human genome. The worst is yet to come. 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. Nashkur Allah ila al-Mazid min al-Niyam al-Qadimata. The roof deck of AI building is awash with bright, multicolored lights. Located along 5th Street, in the heart of the financial district of Los Angeles, the headquarters of the Al-Hassani Industries is a known landmark in the metropolis. The newly constructed 76-story skyscraper, being one of the tallest buildings in California, has a 360-degree view of the city. The bursting fireworks being shot from LA's Grand Park is almost eye level to the party-goers and revelers atop. While Angelenos and visitors from all around the world ushers in year 2020 in the city's biggest music and dance party below, executives and employees of AI enjoy themselves with dancing, games, and food. Although a considerable number of guests are Muslims, there seems to be a tacit agreement that there should be an unlimited flow of wines. We will commence with the giving of awards to our partners and co-workers, who had made AI a dominant corporation in the West Coast. This announcement of the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Al-Hassani Industries was met with a resounding applause. Aaron Al-Hassani continued, in more than a decade of operations, all of you helped this business grow from general merchandise into specialized industries. Aside from its original line of retail merchandise and real estate, the AI group of companies today has controlling interest in other sectors, such as basic materials, chemicals, fertilizers, petrochemicals, iron and steel, energy, oil and gas. As a multinational corporation, a solid investment necessitates for a clout on financial services, banking services, asset management, securities, and credit cards, with a new focus to the emerging Bitcoin technology. The AI boasts a very strong and top-of-the-line management system, with the help of its companies from the communication services, telecom, mobile, network operator, fixed line service and internet providers. Forbes magazine listed Aaron in the top 50 richest executives in the country. It is not surprising that the multi-billion corporation and its very generous CEO is a common entry in the phone books of several political bigwigs, industrialists, and multi-faith foundations in the US and abroad. As the Toastmaster took charge of the event, Aaron rejoined his guests. Luminaries from politics, military, business, entertainment and sports congratulated him. The president wants to convey his felicitations to the continued success of your corporation. The Deputy Cabinet Secretary firmly shook the hand of Aaron. A Deputy Chief of Staff in the U.S. military turned his full attention to Aaron. General Friedrich Clark is a golf buddy at the exclusive Golden Horseshoe Golf Club. The AI executive always enjoys a few strokes and good air every time he visits the East Coast. There is a multi-billion project for space R&D that one of your ICT companies may be interested to join. The U.S. Space Force noted your excellent performance and completion of Project Black Nexus, which gave the U.S. an edge over the Chinese and Russians in cyber defense. Yes, General. I have already sent a representative to the Pentagon, to get the project profile, then negotiate for the contract. Aaron was very quick in affirming his interest. 3 administration senators approached him. The one usually seen in the White House spoke. We want to see some of your companies open its operations in our states this year. That I will do, Senator. Aaron replied in his most charming smile. A very influential floor leader from Congress tapped Aaron in his shoulder. Sometimes, you have to look beyond the man in front of you. There are those who wants to be your friends. Who knows, their influence and legislations could expand further your business interests. The AI executive knew fully well that these people are here not just for his friendship, but also for inclusion in the payroll for this year's campaign period. In the last 3 national elections, he cultivated a persona of benevolence to those who wants to fill in some powerful positions in the White House and Capitol Hill. So far, such investments had returned enormously to his corporation, and enhanced further his influence and social standing. A week later, a developing story being broadcasted by CNN, features the drastic move in containing what the Chinese called a health emergency. Despite the usual censorship, the social media were full of stories, pictures, and video clips of people being brought to hospitals whose ailments were caused by SARS-CoV-2. The World Health Organization set up an incident management support team, across the 3 levels of the organization: headquarters, regional headquarters, and country level. The Director General insisted that the WHO must be able to deal effectively with the outbreak. By mid-January, the UN Health Agency issued a comprehensive package of technical guidance online, with advice to all countries on how to detect, test and manage potential cases, based on what was known about the virus at the time. Seated comfortably in a lounge, inside the main office of the President-CEO at the 44th floor of AI building, a top-ranking WHO official waited for Aaron to finish his call. He made known of himself as personally representing the Director General, handling many transactions that does not need to be on paper. Dr. Malas F. Warkey, my apologies for making you wait. Aaron offered his hand in greetings. I understand you were sent as an emissary of the Director General. He extends his warmest thanks to you, for this very important appointment. The WHO official straightened himself and shook the hands of Al-Hassani Industries' top executive. He is always known to be straightforward. How can I be of service to humanity? Aaron could not hide his amusement. No need to let this poor fellow sweat. He knows exactly what this guy's principal wanted. Sir, I hope you are aware of the recent health emergency in China. Initially, the Chinese thought that they could handle everything. It turned out that this virus is more potent and dangerous. F. Warkey felt uncomfortable in the presence of one of the top billionaires in the Western Hemisphere. He tries to drive his point. The WHO is in a dilemma on how it can proceed with managing an epidemic that is feared to become of global proportion. Aaron smiled and eased the burden on the Eritrean. I know how it works out in the UN. Everybody knows what to say and how to do something. But when the debate is done and assignments are doled out, everybody seems to forget everything. That's right, sir. The DG thought that if you could be burdened with sponsoring a crisis management project, no need to be wasting time on some chit-chat. Aaron expressed his deal. I can donate at least $10 million to WHO intended for any activities it may deem proper, to counter the threat of the new virus. That is so kind of you, Mr. Al-Hassani, I will. But I must be assured on some terms. Aaron suddenly changed his demeanor. He's showing now the eyes of a CEO in a board meeting with some company managers, who were not able to meet their quota of sales. F. Warkey needs to salvage a precarious situation. Of course, sir. I was given a direct order by the Director General, to accede to your terms and conditions. Before I came here, we asked some people whom you have supported in their charitable projects. So, we know your end. If that's the case, we understand each other. Reverting back to his amiable countenance, Aaron pushed on, okay. First, I don't want my name plastered on any media outlets who's who in charity. I will course through the donation from a private account, directly to the WHO cashier's office. Do we need to issue an acknowledgement receipt? F. Warkey's bureaucratic mind clicked. No need for that. Simply note in your book of accounts, that the money came from an anonymous donor for the health of mankind. The nature of donation and amount does not qualify to be a campaign contribution, that government accountants can simply set aside. An untraceable account can help protect the identity of the donor, from unsolicited inquiry. This is the time to value your investment. On my part, I hope the WHO will endorse the creation of a business, that will go into production of medical products related to the emerging disease. That is most agreeable, sir. The hapless emissary cannot dictate the conditions. Dr. F. Warkey, kindly inform personally the DG, that I just registered with the new Silicon Valley Stock Exchange, a business named AI Med. It is a laboratory and pharmaceutical company, with a focus on research and development of a vaccine for the 2019 nCoV-2. So, I expect that the WHO will recommend some experts for the job, as well as provide the protocols and other necessary technologies for its full operation, the soonest time possible. We can definitely provide the things you required. That's a very commendable endeavor, Mr. Al-Hassani. I just hope so. AI has never been into the medical pharmaceutical line of business. The CEO of Al-Hassani Industries stood up and shook the hand of his visitor, to indicate that the meeting is over. As he went back to his desk, a news clip popped up on the screen of his Apple iMac 5K. The first 2019 nCoV-2 case outside China was detected and confirmed in Thailand. Making sure that no one is around, Aaron said to himself, the monster is out now from the closet. But it's good for business. Since the beginning of 2020, the business landscape throughout the world radically changed, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Both government agencies and private individuals were sharing common stories of businesses closing shop, losing revenue, and laying off workers, much to the detriment of the affected persons. But for those with an attitude like that of Aaron Al-Hassani, the situation presents an opportunity for growth. In many cases, some small businesses have proven to be uniquely suited to the COVID-19 crisis, and have seen an uptick in demand. Among the examples of enterprises that are feasible, are those which help people socially distance themselves from others, retailers that enable people to eat and drink at home, as well as providing healthcare services. There were several types of businesses which, using creativity and innovation to a higher level, had learned to adapt to the pandemic. In fact, a lot of reports showed that some traditional businesses have seen success in this new landscape as well. The California Tactical Academy is the largest outdoor shooting range in the greater Los Angeles area. With more than 1,500 acres of land along with 50 different shooting ranges, gun enthusiasts can have exciting activities to enjoy to the fullest. Its patrons can engage in shooting competitions, tactical training, outdoor public shooting range, private bay rentals, private event venues, membership options, and other functions all in one place. Private bay number 3 was rented for a 4-hour private activity. The management readily agreed for another hour of extension, since this group is led by a regular customer and ACTA Gold member. Mr. Ahmed, will you fancy again the 6 hour? P226 Scorpion 9mm. The manager called out to the leader. Nope, maybe an AK-47 WASR. I will try on something that will make me sweat. Oh, it will give you a big kick. Samantha always appreciated this group. Ahmed is so generous, that his tip could buy several rounds of drinks for her friends. Amir, we have a concern with your contact in Henan. A brother notified me that the compound was raided by Speak Ops troopers and the general was killed. Although it was not reported on media, as is common with government operations in China. Ayman Kalimuev, a very able commander from Afghanistan who has been westernized in language and look, and who serves as communications officer, informed his commander. What about the technician that General Gu offered as part of the deal? Ahmed has been in this kind of situation before, when a prospect suddenly disappears due to military intervention. We're still verifying the whereabouts of a reported Pakistani scientist, and 2 other warriors, who were able to elude capture during the operations. I guess they are hibernating right now. Signal our troops in the Orient to extend all possible help to Dr. Amir Siddiqui. Understood, Amir. Only his trusted commanders call him Amir, in deference to their early companionships in Iraq 2 decades ago. In front of Allah's warriors, everybody calls him Khalifa.
Thank you for watching. Write in the comments section for your request as to what book, usually from Project Gutenberg, you want us to feature in U-Book channel.
Click like to boost the rating of U-Book channel, make a comment for us for the improvement of our services, and share this video to your friends, with the copyright intact. Please click subscribe, and hit the bell button to be notified of new uploads from U-Book channel.